we have another what the hell is this? And we have the Munsters. The Munsters, this is a new film coming out on Netflix. This is abysmal. This is easily the worst film of the year for me, and it could be one of the worst films of the decade for me. Like, if it was just sort of okay-ish bad, like kind of normal kind of bad, I would have avoided talking about it. Because I don't hate Rob Zombie, I do not hate. I liked his Halloween films, even though they're controversial for some people. I don't hate the guy. You know, he seems a nice enough guy. But he should not be doing a comedy. And this film proves it. This is terrible. This is like misguided in so many ways. The fact that it's misguided by a fan of the original show, because he's been pretty public about he's a fan of the original show, he loves the show. That makes it more painful to watch, because you see a guy trying to do something that he loves and failing completely at it. Just completely missing the boat on what makes up a successful reboot. So, the idea of this film is it's a prequel to the original series. It's about how they all met up, how the characters met up and joined together. And it's a journey to America to be the Munsters of the TV show. That's the idea. So it's one of the dreaded prequels. And it's done by a guy who isn't good with humour, making a comedy. And it goes on for so long. It's almost 2 hours long. It's an hour 50, but it feels like 4 hours, because every scene is painfully laboured. And it's miscast. It's really miscast. The only person who has half a brain for what his character should be is the guy playing Herman Munster. He's the only guy who's vaguely in the right direction, but he's given so much bad stuff to do that it's like, well, what was the point? I mean, good. You could have been like everyone else and been terrible. So, God, it's so painful. So it starts out with Lily Munster, who's played by the director's wife, and who's awful in this film. She seems to have gone to the Uma Thurman School of comic book acting, and just doing these weird poses, like Uma Thurman, Batman and Robin. She's doing the same thing. And this film reminds me a lot of Batman and Robin in a sense. It's over-designed, very brightly lit, with lots of colours everywhere that don't seem appropriate. It's terrible performances. It's pasteless. It doesn't understand what it's doing or its material. It is an updated Batman and Robin, essentially. It's got that same feel of disaster. But to be honest, I'd watch Batman and Robin over this any day of the week. Because Batman and Robin is an interesting enough train crash to watch how they got it wrong. This one has nothing. This one is pure. Every scene's a train crash. So it starts up with them, and Lily's trying to find a man, and she goes to her father's cinnamon dates, and she goes with one with Count Orloff, who's obviously Nosferatu, and it's a terrible scene. It's painful. It's sitcom. They do all these monsters, these sitcom scenes, and they're excruciating because there's no jokes there. All the jokes are terrible and corny, but mainly terrible. The actors all overacting as if they're nervous. Either they know that the jokes are horrible, or they're just trying to do a style the director wants and it's not coming off. So, but these scenes of her failed audition, all these auditions for her hand in marriage with these terrible characters, when they're not working. You've also got a mad scientist whose sidekick's played by the big guy from Lost, and they're stealing brains and they're stealing hands and stealing different parts of bodies for to make their monster, which will be Herman Munster. And of course, they're idiots. They steal the wrong brain. They steal an idiot's brain rather than a genius brain, which gets into the monster. So Herman Munster was born with this massive body and this moron brain, which is a joke that's been played so many times that they play it as if it's the most new thing ever, and it's painfully laboured, and it's something that's so cliched it could have been a throwaway, but instead you get 40 minutes of bad jokes leading up to that. 40 minutes of scenes that meander on forever and ever, and it's like what would normally be like a half a minute scene plays out for like 10 minutes usually, this film. That's what the film was like. It's every scene plays out far longer than it should, so that every actor can have their little bit and they can overact horribly. And it's full of scenes that would be deleted scenes in any fella film. And it's constantly this way. It's constantly, this scene's horrible, why is it in the film? Because the next scene's worse. It's the answer usually. I mean, you've got actors like Sylvester McCoy in it, who's not the greatest thespian, but he's entertaining. He was one of the fun things in The Hobbit, one of the few fun things in the Hobbit trilogy. And he was a fun Doctor Who, and if you place him right, direct him right, he can be good. Not in this film. He was he's asked to overact every line, have every Scottish syllable overextended. So any line from Sylvester McCoy that could take 2 seconds will take 10. Grandpa Munster is pretty much a non-event character. There's no character there. He's just this guy who's just depressed and he's a bit sketchy. But there's no character there. He's just this. It's all the makeup's does all the work. The actor cannot act through the makeup. And he doesn't have any lines to act through anyway. It's just like these vague things. He's fairly sinister. He wants his daughter married to certain people. But there's no character in the performance there. It's just this put-on-event character that you're just looking and going, eh. Well, supposedly he's a character. I don't know. It's like, I'm getting no characterization from him. Same with Lily Munster. It's just this Uma Thurman 90s campy performance redone. You get no personality there. It's just this thing. She falls to this idiot, him and Munster. You don't know why. All you see this actress being over the top of every little movement, and this other character is an idiot who makes all these terrible jokes. Enthusiastically, yes, but he's just stupid. And every scene's painful. You've got a brother who's a werewolf and who's always up to no good, cornering people, and his scenes last forever because he's obviously meant to be played by a black actor. He's obviously meant to be like a 70s caricature that would be booed off the screen in most movies because it's so insultingly awful. And it's just like, wow, this is such a cliche. This is terrible. You know, it's like, oh god, and every scene he has is painful. And it's like every scene everyone has is painful. It's like every scene. It took me 3 viewings to watch this film. I had to keep on stopping at a certain point because it was like, oh, that's too much. I can't do it. You know. So I turned off after 15 minutes to start with. Then I turned off after like 50 minutes. So I watched from where I turned off from to the 50-minute mark. And then I got through to the end. But nothing ever got better. Everything was painfully bad. Every accent was horribly overacted. Every makeup just looked okay but not interesting. Or they overdid it so that the actor couldn't act. There was no personality there. All the lighting looks cheap. The whole thing looks cheap. Like the trailer came out and everyone said that looks cheap. Obviously they're not using the right shots. No, the awful trailer is the best stuff in the film. The rest of the film's worse. It's just so terrible. The film's just so terrible. Everything is shot with all these day-glow lights and things, and it's all colour coordinated to death in a way that, where's the atmosphere? What's it trying to set up in any of these scenes? Why is Count Orlov dancing? It's not funny. And they think it's hilarious. Why does the reaction shots all of these weird backgrounds to them? Anytime someone's overreacting to something shocking, there's weird backgrounds. The set's been designed for these shots, obviously. But they're terrible. And they're awkwardly forced and they're badly edited. And you're so bored you can't get any energy from them at that point. It's like, it's way too late. This should have been like an hour 20. They should have cut us down as much as they could. Get rid of all those painful things. Then it might have been watchable at least, and get rid of some of the weird inflections they had. Because what this is not watchable. This is just terrible. This is amateur hour. People are not acting the way they should to get people interested in the drama or interested in the characters. They're just doing their own thing as if it's interesting. It's not. It's just tediously awful. And there's no point of view. Like, it's like, oh, let's do these weird visuals that do feel like we get from the Lost Boys. Let's do that. That'd be fun, won't it? That'd be fun. No, it's not, because there's no character. There's no world set up. There's these old gypsy characters. You think, okay, well, they're trying to do atmosphere here. Nope. There's no atmosphere to them. They pop in, they pop out every so often to get the plot moving. And what else is their motivation? Oh yeah, Grandpa was married to one of them for a bit. Are we going to develop that? No. They're just there to get the next plot point done. There's painful scenes and honeymoon scenes with Herman and Lily going to Paris. And it's every painful joke you can make in Paris. Every joke that would have been like groans in the 1940s is in here. Like, every joke is terrible. It's just so painful, this whole film. The jokes when they go to America and they arrive on Halloween, so they don't realise that everybody does not look like them, are painfully laboured. And the horror of seeing real people and how ugly they think they are is painfully laboured. The pacing of these scenes are just awful. The pacing in every scene is awful. It's like whoever edited this thing should have shamed themselves, because this is terrible. There's nothing land, because it feels like an assembly of everything you got is shot and it hasn't been edited down for pace. That's what it feels like. There's no editing being done in this film beyond doing an assembly. Like, I don't know how you can watch this film and not say this is a disaster. And yet I feel when that trailer came out and everybody knew in the studio, this is a disaster, we just have to release it and get it out of the way. Like, do a contractual obligation and move on and say, sorry about that. We hope for something better. Because that's what it feels like. It feels like it's been dumped. And it's like, well, good luck. Yeah, that didn't work. No sequel for this one. This is awful. This is so painful to talk about, even how bad it is. This is like, I've managed to avoid a film this bad all year. Normally the bad ones I've seen this year have been enjoyably bad. Like, they've been painfully stupid, but that's part of the charm of them. No other one has been as boring as Jurassic World, but this makes Jurassic World look good. This is just avoid. Just avoid. It's a public warning. Avoid this film. It's terrible. It's objectively terrible. So everything that's nice about this film really distrust their taste, because they're obviously a moron. Because this is one of the worst films ever made. So, sorry to be so negative, but this is, oh my god, this was Battlefield Earth level of painful watching. So, I'll see you next time. Bye for now.